some thought-provoking things. It's a great tool for the toolbox, as she says. And also, you can get your free copy just by going to their website, which is recoverywiremagazine.com. My guest tonight, Don Crocock. He is an addictions counselor, outreach worker, and Dr. Rick Csiernik, who is a professor at King's University College in the area of addictions studies, as well as workplace wellness. So I have an outstanding panel tonight, and I'm so pleased that you're calling in and taking advantage of these wonderful gentlemen's knowledge and their expertise. So let's head back to the phone lines. Let's go to line 5 right now. Carolyn's holding from Hamilton. Hi there, Carolyn. Welcome to our show tonight. Go ahead. Have you got a question or a comment?
Basically, I heard the first topic you bring up was shame and guilt. I'm 32. I've been struggling with addiction since I was 14 years old. And basically, I'm at a pivotal point in my life where big changes happen, where my brain itself is actually healed from the damage of addiction and the mental health problems, because I have a concurrent disorder, right? So I have borderline personality and then the addiction, which just makes it so much harder. And I think there's so many people that are out there, and people don't realize that they have mental health issues and addiction, and it's just focused on the addiction. But what people don't realize is that, you know, in a lot of the cases, a lot of these people have two issues going on, and basically what's out there, the help and the support, is just mainly around the addiction, where I think there should be a lot more education when it comes to the mental health part, because people are just so unaware of mental illness and how much it can cause a person to become an addict, and like borderline personality, which I have, it's a symptom of it. But again, you don't want to use it as an excuse. But when it comes to shame and guilt, for me, that was one of the very last things that I had to deal with. I had a severe relapse in August, and for the first time, I put my family in danger, and that's what really woke me up and got me seriously clean. And I started to really heal mentally. You know, it's been a long journey. And, you know, I had a slip again in February, and my family's always been there. They've always supported me. For most parents, they probably would not go as far as my parents have in supporting me. But I think the best pivotal point in my life, like I could cry, is that it's something that can't even be taught in treatment, and that's self-love. And the minute I realized that I love myself and I don't want to hurt myself was the biggest eye-opening moment of my life, because I didn't care. You know, I hurt myself so much, and to some people that sounds crazy. Like, you realize you didn't want to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
You
Carolyn,
want to love.
thank you so much for sharing your story. She brings out so many things. And it's great, because, Carolyn, you have no idea how many people you have probably touched tonight with your story and what you've been through. I'd love for my panel to talk a little bit about, she talked about the connection of mental health and also addiction. Don?
Well, I really thank you, Carolyn, for bringing that up, because you're spot on. I mean, so much of what we deal with is, you know, of a concurrent nature. And more and more, it's becoming not either or, but both. And speaking of Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken, now Rick, you're from Hamilton, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that St. Joe's has a new program on concurrent disorder. And just, you know, briefly, down in Niagara, we are establishing more of a focus on concurrent disorder as well. In fact, our outreach workers of Niagara, an organization that I'm part of, and I'm on the planning committee, you spoke last year at it, we are holding our annual workshop on September 23rd this year, and our theme is concurrent disorders. So, you know, thank you for bringing that up. And I really, really was touched by the part that you said about the self-love. I mean, that was beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. I think you touched on so many important themes that have come up this evening, is that the road to recovery, it's not an easy one. It's a bumpy one. It goes backwards and forwards. The concurrent disorder one, historically, for people who are listening who have a long-term addiction issue, and I think that goes to our earlier caller as well too, but that feeling of emptiness. I mean, that mental health issue speaks directly to it. For the longest time, you're either addiction client or mental health client, and it's only in the last few years that we've realized. So some of you have been in treatment and it hasn't been successful as you thought about it. It may well be because the treatment professionals weren't as knowledgeable as we are today. And going back to treatment now, you do get a much more broader perspective of what's happening. And lastly, your family support. Absolutely, you did a great comment about families being understanding, your families being tough with you, but tough love not being the only option, then being supportive. Again, that spoke to our last caller as well too, about families having to understand you just can't act one way towards you. There are different ways to interact as you go through your recovery period too. So your story is fantastic, and congratulations to you for what you've succeeded in doing.
Yeah, and thanks so much for sharing, Carolyn. Let's go now to line 4, and Joe is calling in tonight from Hamilton. Hi, Joe, you're live on our show, and thank you for picking up the phone tonight. Do you want to talk to my panel?
I do. I called in a few times, but and you got a great show. It's a brilliant idea, and it helps a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But what I'm calling in is I've been prescribed OxyContin. I do take 4 20s a day, and I also want a 100 microgram fentanyl patch. And I've been going on like this for 10 years. I've never abused it. Never found some people say it's a party and everything. I don't find no party in it at all, so I've never abused them. And I went to a pain clinic, and the guy said, you're going to take these for the rest of your life, and you need stronger ones and everything like this. But I don't know. And my family doctor says, you've got to get off of these. Or, you know, every time you come in here and complain about something, he said, all you got to do to get away from any problems is stop these OxyContins and get off these painkillers. They're terrible. And so I was wondering if you were to go into a detox for a week or two, whatever it takes. I never even knew a physical thing. You could be physically addicted to something. I thought that was a joke. But anyway, when you get detoxed, after you're done, the fighting the thing, like I have no way or no desire to go find these pills if I could get off of them. But I'm wondering if your skin is going to crawl and you're shaking and flipping out all the time. Does that continue?
Start, go ahead.
Well, Joe, I used to work in withdrawal management service for the Niagara Health System, and but having said that, I'll also say that I don't consider myself a spokesperson for them. However, typically, yes, you know, whether or not you're taking substances like OxyContin for, you know, pain or pleasure, there's a physical dependency. And yes, there are some withdrawal symptoms that you will go through. Some withdrawal management services will use other medications, perhaps Valium, diazepam, a very low dose, just to mitigate the worst of the withdrawal symptoms and sort of help you, you know, stabilize a little more gently than perhaps you would otherwise. I do know that Hamilton has a really good withdrawal management service, and as we do in Niagara. So I can't really speak to whether or not, though, that I believe that you should go that route, because I'm not a doctor, and you know, it's when you're dealing with pain, it's a whole different situation.
You unfortunately are stuck in a situation that a lot of people are in. You've got contradictory medical advice, and I want to be very supportive of my colleagues in the medical profession. Well, I'm a doctor, I'm not a medical doctor. Their training is very different than mine. The reality is the typical doctor does not get a lot of addiction medicine training. And so, Joe, I mean, you've got one physician that you've been on pain medication for 10 years, Oxycontin, fentanyl, those are pretty substantive, so your pain must be quite real. Your general practitioner sees that and sees some perhaps physical elements, but what you need is a referral to understand why you're on this pain medication, what options you are on, and then rather than your general practitioner, an addiction specialist doctor, because you're absolutely right, if you're coming off this drug, there are going to be some side effects. But the question is that in all our brains, which is a wonderful thing, our brains have this thing called endomorphins. And endomorphins are a natural pain medication. So you bang your fist, you cut your finger, you get sunburned, all the endorphins come through and they block that pain. But then we have serious pain in our life, back injury, discs rubbing against each other, femur breaks, that our natural pain systems can't manage it. And so there's a wonderful thing called the opium poppy that manufactures the same type of drug, but in larger doses. And for some people who have so much pain, this is a reality of their life. There are options, there's meditation, there's chiropractic, there's all sorts of options, but this is where the pain medical specialist comes in. And while I respect your general practitioner, he probably hasn't had a lot of training. Because remember, he's got to know how to deliver a baby, set your broken arm, and give you drugs. So they're often not the most knowledgeable, they don't have the training in this area. So before you make any decision, please do seek out a specialist to find out what your options are, how serious your pain are, if you want to go a non-medical route, what options, but just to go a detox with just a general practitioner, you need really a specialist to help inform you and give you all the possible knowledge you have.
I'd like to suggest too, a sponsor for our show is Freedom from Addiction. And we've had Dr. Gupta. He is an addiction specialist. He's been on the show before, and he has helped many people detox from opiates. And they do a good job. I was there to visit the facility, and it's definitely worthwhile a phone call for you, Joe. And also right in the Hamilton area is a former sponsor of our show and really good people, Turning Point Detox. And they might, you know, their phone lines, they are the best at talking to people on the phone, and perhaps might be able to give you some direction and answer those questions that you had, you know, like, you know, is my skin gonna crawl, and things like that. They will be able to help you. So we've got Freedom from Addiction up on the air for you right now, and Turning Point Detox is not hard to find at all because they are in the Hamilton region. So thank you so much for calling in tonight, and I hope that those options are good for you and can help you down the road to you know, pain's a tough thing. Because like you said, if he's on fentanyl and also on the Oxycontin,
it's a serious pain.
There's serious issues there.
They don't give those out easily. So.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate, that's why you have to be very careful as to, from my point of view, what sort of advice I give someone, because any good counselor knows their limitations, and I'm not a medical doctor, so. I wouldn't even hazard a guess as to the efficacy of the substances that you're taking and the need and for continuation. Yeah. That's, you know, above my pay grade. However, like Dr. Rick said, seek out that sort of advice and input and take it from there.
Thanks so much for calling in. Time for another short break here on Living Clean, Living Well. But when we come back, more of your phone calls and more from Don Crocock and Rick Csiernik.
It's scary to think that you're going to live the rest of your life without drugs and alcohol when it's all you've depended on. But there is hope. I knew I couldn't do it alone, and treatment allowed me the chance to ask for the help that I needed in order to believe that I could live a sober life. I got the help and support that I needed, and even now that I've left, I still have that support there.
Hello, I'm Ellen Campbell, the CEO and founder of the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness. As a charity, we depend on viewers such as yourself to support the programs for First Nations, women and children, anti-bullying, and elder abuse. I invite you to visit our website, see what you can do to share. Any donation over $20 will receive a tax receipt. Thank you so much for all your support.
Statistics state that it is likely you know a victim of abuse. It could be a friend, a relative, a colleague. It could even be you. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. Please give them hope. Help us make it stop. Go to abusehurts.com and give to the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness.
Tonight on Living Clean, Living Well, we have been talking to you. Thank you so much for all of you that have picked up the phone and called in tonight. And please do, we've got a few more minutes left in this show before we wrap up another show, another episode here. We are willing to take any phone call about addictions and substance abuse, anything that you would like to ask my panelists tonight. Speaking of which, I'd like to reintroduce who they are in case you have just joined us. We've got Don Crocock, who has been on the show now 5 times, which is fantastic. As I mentioned earlier, he's an outreach worker, also addictions counselor, and then Dr. Rick Csiernik, who is a professor in addictions research as well as workplace wellness. So a lot of knowledge and experience to draw upon tonight. One area of passion for Don is the world of hepatitis C, if I may call it that. World Hepatitis Day is coming up on, what is it, July the 28th?
July 28th.
28th. Yes. Why don't you tell us about what you've got going on down in Niagara for those that may have missed it?
Okay, first off, thanks, because one of the biggest issues in seems to be in addiction, you know, is stigma. As you know, we deal with it all the time. If you add in an infectious disease such as hepatitis C, then you've raised the bar considerably on the stigma count, unfortunately. And, you know, many people with a history of substance use, they just choose to ignore it. And unfortunately, if they continue on that path, it can be too late before they get around to doing anything about it.
And this comes where your issues of shame and embarrassment come in as well.
Exactly.
So they think they can just hide it, but what happens if you don't come forward is much more problematic than talking about it. Much more,
because then you're looking at aspects of, you know, cirrhotic development and liver failure, liver cancer.
And Donna, from what I recall, I believe and you were very honest about it last time, you did not know you had Hep C, did you?
Not at all, no. I had 15 and a half years clean in 2008 when I was diagnosed in the fall of 2008 with hepatitis C, and you could have knocked me over with a feather, literally. I was shocked, and believe me, I did go through a very brief, overwhelming feeling of shame. Right after I left the doctor's office, it hit me so hard that I had to pull off the road. Just a wash of shame that came over me. And, you know, luckily I knew what it was, and I had success in recovery to date. So I knew how to deal with it, and I went about dealing with it. My message now to people, and before I even mention Hepatitis C Day or Hepatitis Day in our activities, my message to anyone who is if you were born between 1945 and 1965, you should get tested for hepatitis C. It doesn't cost you anything. Why those dates? Baby boomers. Yeah. It's just baby boomers are recommended in the United States. The FDA has recommended that all baby boomers in the United States be tested once for hepatitis C. Health Canada has come out with some similar recommendation, but not quite perhaps as stringent.
Because you may not even know you've got it, right?
Right, because it's not simply a matter of drug taking history that could cause hepatitis C. Some people, even when they were born, had blood transfusion things. Don't even know that they did. For some reason or another, their parents never really discussed much about their infancy and that. They may have had blood transfusions, and they may have been infected by what we call tainted blood prior to 1991.
Yeah. And the protocols were just as stringent. The care we take today just wasn't there. We just weren't aware of it. It didn't even exist on our radar. So we didn't test about it. It wasn't even an idea to discuss.
Right.
So my message, quickly, my message to anyone with any with those years in mind, but also anyone with any history of drug taking. And I don't mean just IV drug use, although that is the easiest, perhaps, if you will, or most efficient way of getting the disease. But also if you have a history of inhalation, so in particular roll-up bills, little minute drops of blood can be caught in the folds of the bill, or crack pipes. That's why many of us in Niagara, including, we're going to be distributing crack pipes free to very soon in order to try to reduce the impact and transmission of infectious diseases. So you owe it to yourself to get tested. That's my message. When I'm on the street and when I'm dealing with people who are active drug users, it doesn't matter to me. I meet you where you're at. But my message is always the same. If you think you have Hep C or you may have been affected, get tested. If it turns out that you do have Hep C, then come and see us at a clinic or similar helpful situation. And we can find out, we don't do biopsies anymore, we can find out through a simple blood test the degree of liver damage so that you can respond accordingly and you don't have to wait, ignore things until it's too late.
Yeah. Okay,
so please.
And the risk is any shared drug use. So if you're sharing any paraphernalia, you may be at risk.
Equipment.
Equipment, yeah. And so this is a very simple test and it won't take much of your time and just be a relief that you don't have this condition. Yeah.
So down in Niagara, you've got a day.
Thank you.
July 28th?
Yes, July 28th at the Market Square, downtown St. Catharines. We have the entire pavilion, the closed-in pavilion for the day. So rain or shine, we're on. Our partners from the Niagara Region Public Health, Sexual Health Centers. We have 2 outreach nurses down in Niagara. Not all regions have outreach nurses. And the one in particular, Stacy, I partner up with frequently, and they will be there. Her and Scott will be there doing in a cordoned off enclosed area, partitioned off area. They will be doing any testing that anyone wants to get done. It's free service. We're going to have some entertainment. We're going to have some snacks and a whole lot of information from, the last I heard, I think there was a vicinity of 25 or more agencies. I'm not quite sure on the count, but it's ongoing. It's increasing all the time. So come on out to the Market Square Monday, July 28th, 8:30 to 4:30.
And if you don't live in Niagara, and this is an issue of concern to you, call your public health department. And they'll be able to tell you where to go if there's an equivalent day, but if not, there'll be places where you can get tested anonymously and confidentially. And so wherever you're in Canada, public health department, they can help you the same way that Dawn does in Niagara.
Wonderful. Well, that's great. So we've got the good information out there about Hep C and the awareness and World Hepatitis Day. I also want to talk a little bit about Rick's latest book. How many books is this now?
This is number 9.
And he hates to tell me his accomplishments, but I always feel they should be celebrated. The latest book just out now, right?
Just out this month.
So Workplace Wellness, Issues and Responses. And you know, Rick, a lot of your work has been in the area of addictions, and you were saying that sometimes within the workplace, things become so sour that it can lead to addiction.
I'm not sure if anyone works in a workplace that doesn't have a level of stress. So, I mean, the book talks about your stress and how you deal with it. But we're also much more aware now than we were when you were working in EAP and even when I started working 30 years ago about issues of workplace violence and how these things are not acceptable, about the notion of bullying and how there is emotional bullying as well as physical bullying. So the book talks about those issues and how, again, the notion of shame is, oh, I can handle it. I can handle this joking. I can handle this commentary. Well, it's not joking, it's not commentary. We know now that in human rights is that everyone needs to be respected in the workplace. So the book talks about the fact that how prominent this is, and again, it's not you. It's upwards of 20% of employees in the workplace who have been subjected to violence, to bullying, to unwanted commentary that increases your stress levels. And of course, we know you take your stress home, you take your stress from home back to work, the two combine together, and one of the outcomes is excessive drug use. And so the book speaks to that, speaks again to the fact this is a very normal response. Don't be shamed by it. And there are places in the workplace to go for help. Some of you might have an employee assistance program, employee counseling program. There are community resources too. Don't accept this. This is not allowable in our society today. And please act on it before you do some self-harm, before you do some self-medication, act forward. And so the book talks about this in 400 long pages, what I just gave you in 2.5 quick minutes.
Something that you said is very, very alarming. Workplace violence, is that even tolerated? What sort of violence are we talking about?
Well, there's all sorts of violence. I mean, in Don's job, where he's out in outreach, he's constantly subjected to outreach.
Okay.
I work with correctional officers and police officers who are literally at risk. Anyone in customer service knows with an irate customer how easy it is to reach across. I've worked with banks where we've had not just robberies, but threat of robbery. So as you extend this to the notion of violence in the workplace, it's not always worker against worker, it's customer against worker.
Right.
Yeah, brewers, for example.
Yeah.
Or liquor store workers, I mean, are threatened by customers that come in and are intoxicated, and then they turn them away for service, and the next thing you know, they're climbing over the counter at them. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was thinking, in an office environment or something like that. I couldn't picture the violence, but now that you explain it, I really get that.
So I mean, there's different levels. There's worker against worker. There's customer against worker.
Yeah.
There's policies that put you in unsafe work conditions where. Because you're not in a non-unionized workplace, you figure you have to do a high-risk job, and therefore you are subjected to injury and risk. And so those are all factors that contribute to your stress level that can lead to a trigger for alcohol or drug use.
I know someone that was bullied at work, and it shocked me that it was allowed to carry on. And the bully actually really knew how to work the office place, they knew how to work the managers, and yet still have these things that were going on that really ruined morale around there.
And we're great about talking about kids in the schools about that, but the bullies in the school, once they graduate, they don't go away.
They grow up,
They grow up and they've learned,
move on to the office.
Well, especially if they've not been reprimanded, they've not been authority. And again, historically, we've not dealt with this. It's just part of growing up. Well, again, it's not part of growing up. This is an act of violence against you.
The other thing that I'd like to talk about before we wrap up our show is something that came up, and I don't think we expounded upon it enough, the issue of tough love. In the issue of an addict's life or a person, we don't say addicts here. You were telling me earlier, we say person.
I say a person with addiction. And again, I respect members who are part of the 12-step notion. Again, you remember the 12 steps started in 1935, and they changed the face of addiction.
Yeah.
It's 2014. You don't do heart surgery in 2014 like I did in 1935.
Right.
And so I'm pushing language and the way we think about this too.
Good
so by all means, call yourself what you want to. When you talk to me, you're a person with addiction. Because there's so many other parts to you. You're a child, you're a parent, you're a sister, your brother, you're an employee, you're a volunteer, you're a coach. There's so much about you. Your addiction may be central to where your life is now. But there's so much. That's why I don't use the word addiction.
And that's good. I'm glad that we got that point out too. So if you are a person that is struggling with addiction, and April called in early, and you could hear that her heart was broken because the family had, they had drawn the line in the sand. Yeah. And I have had wonderful guests come on, and they have talked about tough love being a good thing. In my own family, my late brother-in-law, Martin Kruze, his family was told, you have to start doing tough love with Martin in order to help him with his addictions. But Rick, you disagree. Oh, and I've got 1 minute, so you give me the professorial wrap-up here.
Okay, so lots of options. Obviously, there are people you don't want to be taken advantage of, but being taken advantage of is different than saying you must do something. Earlier, Dawn and I talked about the difference between motivating someone and coercing them. You know the second someone tells you, you must do this, and points a finger at you and starts poking you in the chest, what was your response to that? Yeah, you get angry. And so what is it that is important in a person's life? What do they value? And if they value you as a family member and you withdraw that support, I'm not saying to be a pushover and to give all your money away to them, but say, look, you're part of our lives. How can we work together to help you move forward, as opposed to, if you don't tell me what I do and listen to all my demands, I'm going to withdraw my love from you. How is that helping a person move forward? So to talk perhaps the future, if Dawn and I come back, we can talk about the different ways we can motivate people versus coercing individuals to change.
Perfect. We're going to take our last break here on Living Clean, Living Well, but we will be right back.
I've been through multiple treatment centers with my addiction, fighting it for the last 10 years, 17 detoxes, 3 different treatment centers. But they put me into counseling and everything here after my detox, which was the smartest thing I could have ever done. I got the real demons out of me that I wasn't able to do over the last 10